units, all polling units, 176, 646 of this election that we just had. The Labour Party has 69% coverage of polling units by their party agents. If they have those figures and they have those results from those polling centers, how significant then is the hue and cry about IREV?
Well, that's the issue of legitimacy you spoke about and the perception. Because, yeah, you said so do it and you hold yourself accountable. In fact, that is where the world is going to. Public agencies should say, we will perform at this level and hold us liable if we do not. That's the only way you can get the staff to perform. Hedging and saying we shouldn't tolerate that. You should take your position on ground and say, this is what we're going to do, and then you've got to do it. You have to raise that level of that measure of professionalism. But the issue about, and that's also an issue, if you have 69,000, then obviously you don't know what's happening in those other areas. 69%, then you don't know what's happening in those other areas. So there's going to be
the case of one of the parties.
Yeah, so that's going to be an issue. You probably don't need 90% for you to make projections about where is it, because you can do some weighting and then you should reasonably be able to know where we're at. So what I'm saying is not that they would declare, but they should be candid about what their performance is based on the reports that the polling agents have sent them.
Perhaps actually that is the basis. You wanted to say something to that?
Yes, you want that.
We need to put this in context. Inec is a referee. And a lot of our Nigerians don't really understand the purpose of the IREV. And the best way to understand it is to look at it from the football perspective. The IREV is the equivalent of the VAR in football. The IREV is the equivalent of the VAR. And imagine if FIFA promised that during the World Cup, the VAR will be used to check for fouls. And we go into the World Cup, we start the game, and we discover
that the VAR
is not working.
Yes.
Will we continue the game? And that is what the IREV stands for. The IREV is the equivalent of VAR for the footballers. And so we've gone into this match. The footballers expect the VAR to be working to catch the fouls, to know if it should be a penalty, should know if it should be a yellow card. That's what it is. It's the VAR. So what has happened is we've seen INEC host the World Cup. It's equivalent of the World Cup. Promised to use the VAR, but the VAR was not used.
However, in the football's analogy, the referee also still calls what he sees on the VAR.
And that's what's going on right now.
Because we also have, he should have called this, he should not have called this. So that goes...
Which also speaks to perceptions of trust.
Yes,
also
exactly.
And legitimacy. Yeah, because if you promise that you are going to use the VAR as the referee, what happens is that when people say, the referee, you should have seen this, and he says, okay, let me go and check.
Exactly.
So he goes to the VAR
to check.
Checks, comes back and says, well, actually, that's correct. The VAR has confirmed that is actually a penalty, it's not a foul, or whatever it is.
On his own judgment, not on your judgment.
No, of course not. But then you see, again, going back to where we stand now, perhaps, the whole issue still dovetails to overpromise and under-delivery. And what Adeboye Adegoke spoke about, the gap between the discovery and the communication of what was going on, which was then filled up by all these innuendos, conspiracy theories, or even plain suspicion about what it was that was really going on and why, there wasn't the quick, deliberate and direct admission that, look, there's something wrong. So if you go to IREV right now, you may not see any results. These are the reasons why. So it's like when people say you get ahead of the curve. That before people get there, you have already anticipated that that's where they're likely to end, and that you tended to mitigate it. Now that is proving to be very, very difficult, and that I guess is why one is tending to say, look, okay, does this taint the whole process? Unfair as that may turn out to be in terms of an assessment, because this is one part of the process. But it could be that part of the process that tends to, just stain everything, because of the way it is.
Vladi, a wise man once said, "Blessed are those who expect nothing, for they shall never be disappointed." The issue is Nigerians had expectations from Inec, so they are disappointed. We wouldn't be here if there were no expectations. The expectations were that results would be uploaded. Expectations were that immediately the results and the process was concluded, the Beavers machine that was used, the same Beavers machine that was used for accreditation is the same Beavers machine that is meant to be used to upload the results. So the question is, if the Beavers worked well for accreditation, why did it not work well for uploading?
And even for the BVAS, there were contingencies where BVAS was taken, it was replaced,
fixed in some instances. And there's quite a number of unanswered questions.
But again, that doesn't stop who is in the lead.
Yeah, but
I wanted to talk about the Resident Electoral Commissioner for Ebonyi, who has just threatened to arrest any INEC official who fails to turn in their results today, saying that there were some delays from the INEC officials.
That's some news there. Please, could you repeat that for the purpose of information?
The Resident Electoral Commissioner for Ebonyi State, Ugochi Onyeka, has threatened to arrest any INEC official who fails to turn in their results today. The REC made the statement, and this is following the delays by some INEC officials in that state.
And we also, of course, need to remind our viewers of that World Press Conference being called by the leadership of the Presidential Campaign Council of the Labour Party in Abuja at 4 o'clock this evening. Of course, the speculations are rife, very much so, that they intend to weigh in on these very issues that we are discussing here on set, what has happened with the process and all of that. So we are. Well, perhaps let's take this opportunity to remind our viewers of the various people who have won, prominent people who have won elections.
National Assembly seats.
Yes, particularly the National Assembly.
And earlier, just when we started the show, we spoke about Colonel Musa Yar'Adua of the APC winning the Katsina Central Senatorial District. We also understand that David Mark's daughter, Lady Blessing Onu, is re-elected under the APC. She polled 29,031 to beat PDP's candidate, Alex Ochacho, who is said to have polled 21,742 to clinch the Otukpo Ohimini zone. Senator Akpabio, Godswill Akpabio, wins Akwa Ibom Northwest senatorial election. Senator Ahmed Lawan wins his seat, Yobe North senatorial zone. Enugu Governor Ifeanyi Ugwuanyi, we understand, lost the Senate seat. Speaker Femi Gbajabiamila won his seat in Lagos. Senator Solomon Adeola also won the APC ticket. Senator Olujimi lost to return bid to APC's Adara Modu. And we have APC's Nwa Ebonyi retiring ex-Governor Sam Egwu from the Senate. Over in Cross River, Governor Ben Ayade lost his senatorial election. We understand also that the final results of the National Assembly elections in Ondo State, the APC won the 3 senatorial seats, as well as 8 out of the 9 federal constituencies, leaving 1 for the People's Democratic Party. And it's another surprise, Kaduna North senatorial seat, the PDP won there. Khalid Ibrahim Mustafa, he polled a total of 250,026 votes to defeat his closest rival, the incumbent senator, Sulaiman Abdul Kawari of the APC, who scored 190,008 votes. Many of these details are still coming in, and more collation taking place across the country.
A lot of surprises. Many of these surprises speak to the level of competitiveness of the electoral process itself. Even as we talk about all of this and the issues, the kinks that have come up with the process and what is to be done about it, we must remind ourselves, Prof, that in about 10, 11 days, we'll be back here again talking about the governorship and state houses of assembly elections. So it's not only important to fix this for this purpose, it's also important to fix it for the coming election, because that one, in fact, is the one closer to the people at the grassroots. But I wonder if, as part of looking at this in a winding position, can we say that whatever it is that comes up now, whatever it is that is used to find some kind of solution, and Jide, you could weigh in on this as well if you want, it is going to suffer from some kind of trust deficit in view of what has happened up until now.
You keep using the word of taint. I'm trying to
avoid.
No, I'm trying to sort of tamp it down. But you really are very correct. And I think the people who are making noise about this, the results not being uploaded, also have a very serious point. Because in the Osun election, we had this scenario where a particular set of beavers' data was given to one side, and a different set was presented. That doesn't, evince much trust. And so I think Inec has to really be very careful in this. So they must handle this very carefully, because that didn't seem too straight, and so we have to be very careful. And it's good that they're being called out on this. So this has to be taken with every sense of responsibility.
And it's actually quite delicate.
Yes.
Because even now, Ladi Millicent, you remember that a good number of guests have repeated two words: crisis communication, since yesterday. And we didn't foresee a situation where the IREV wouldn't have uploaded as much until now. We just barely crossed the 59,000
mark, even
mark.
as we speak.
As we speak, it's 59,010 results have been submitted on the IREV as at this moment, and we're still gunning for more than 176,000. So in terms of crisis communication, Prof, I don't even, just as you said, INEC has to be careful, but at the same time, delay is delicate.
Dangerous.
Yeah, okay, so that's why I said whatever you can do to fix the digital portal, do that now.
And if it cannot
before
be fixed,
you come back.
And if it cannot be fixed?
Oh, then you have, if it's truly a technical problem, then let us know.
So communication.
Yes, if that's what it is, then that's what it is. But that suggests that you need some level of scrutiny, so that it's not just your word. Unfortunately, at this stage.
Jide, I'm being asked that we need to wind down this segment, so you're going to have the last word.
There are two questions Nigerians are asking. Only two questions at this moment. The first is to the CBN. Where are the new Naira notes? The second is to INEC. Where are the election results?
On IREV.
Millicent.
Okay.
That's a very interesting one.
That's a good way. That's a good way.
He's been
the
saying the same
question
thing
that
since
keeps
yesterday.
just sweeping in my head is, does that invalidate what eventually will be uploaded IREV?
No, Prof has already spoken to that.
Yes.
Prof has already spoken
Yes.
to that to say no. That doesn't invalidate. But guys, we got to go. First, of course, we have to thank Professor Olawale Ajayi, legal, social, and political environment of business. Thank you so much
Thank you for
being
having
with
me.
us on this day. Of course, Babajide Ogunsowo is our in-house person is a co-anchor, shall we say. Jide, as always, it's a pleasure to have you with us. Guys,
just before we go, we should just wrap up with this one very quickly. The APC candidates have appealed to the people of Lagos to be calm and eschew any act that can lead to breakdown of law and order.
That's the APC presidential candidate. That's talking about Senator Bart.
Yes, said it. The outcome of the election in Lagos, where Labour Party won the presidential election, should not be a source of provocation, and that needs to be emphasized, saying that the beauty of democracy is that people have a right to vote for the candidate of their choice. I think it's very, very important that that's coming from him. And
talking about strategic communication.
And in another hour.
One more thing. I think one of the things the Chief of Defense Staff, General Lokirab, also mentioned yesterday is to remind everyone that there's no party that is greater than the party we all belong to. The party called Unity, Faith, Peace, and Progress.
That might also be the message of the Labour Party in Abuja. We're headed there now.
Well, we'll go to Abuja now on behalf of Ayo and Millicent, who have been with me. I can see Chamberlain, Maupe, and Nelta. Hi, guys. Good afternoon.
Well, yes, indeed. We're picking up from here. So welcome to our continuing coverage of the general elections, the 2023 verdict. And yes, indeed, all eyes has indeed been on wherever the results are coming from, National Collation Center, State Collation Center. So lots of questions, impressions, perceptions about all that people have seen, and probably to a large extent what they are about to see. Yes, they've already formed their opinion, actually. So we will be here to guide you through as much as we can. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
Indeed. Welcome once again. I'm Maupe Ogun Yusuf. Thank you so much for staying with us so far.
Exciting, but yet, how do you say, draining, waiting for those results to come in. But I'm sure everyone around the country, and indeed around the world, they are waiting for this. Someone said Nigerians in diaspora are waiting like hawks to get the final result. I'm Nel Taibo. It's good to have you with us.
We're waiting together, actually. So we're keeping our tabs on the National Collation Center. So we should be crossing over anytime soon to see what the commission will be doing next, having taken a break a moment ago. But here in the studios, we've got some analysts joining us to shed light on some of what they've seen and what we should expect, probably. On my far right, Oluwole Osaze-Ozi, former Director of Voter Education for Inec. Professor Bosede Alimi is an Iraq analyst. Now, Professor Remi Aide is just on my immediate right, so I don't mix that all up. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to the studios.
Thank you.
So perhaps you should give us your impressions of what you've seen so far. Prof, let me start with you.
But there are hitches here and there, which is causing some bit of delay, and there's a lot of apprehension in town. I think a lot needs to be done in terms of trying to explain, getting people to understand the challenges that INEC is facing, and also what steps are going to
just
take.
Adjust your mic for a bit. So, Saida, could you also tell us? I mean, I know, you've seen some results through Remi. I beg your pardon, Bosede. So, tell us concerning what you've seen, what you expected. How do you reconcile that?
I mean, as you know, we are non-partisan. The CSOs, we are here to ensure a credible process. But I think that one of the things that's evident is that Nigerians have come out to vote. They are committed to defending their vote. And I think, as you mentioned earlier, all eyes are on the collation centers, as it should be. And I think one of the things that we're checkmating ourselves on is the importance of understanding where you're getting your results from. I think we need to continue to emphasize the importance of people actually looking to the Electoral Commission for the announced and declared results as their source. So I think for me, our democracy is evolving, and we are part of that process. So it's unfolding, it's evolving, and we are part of telling the story. So everything that's happening is what we expect to happen in a democracy. And I think as long as that's happening, then, it's like life is in session, if you know what I mean.
Well, Ms. Uzi, I know you have... you've had a huge experience of being in INEC, and so when people have this impression of INEC, probably you will understand it to a larger extent than many who've not been in there. So if you could just go ahead and then tell us, having heard the impressions, expressions that people have so far of INEC, perhaps in addition to what played out at the National Coalition Center, what do you think?
Well, I think we've seen the good, the not so good, the bad, and the ugly, with due respect to those who had that title of that film then. The good, the resilience of the people, the determination to ensure that they vote and their vote counts, the patience to wait, and their willingness to sacrifice so much to exercise their franchise. That was so good. On the next part, the fact that there was no postponement of this election is an incredible thing, and let's give credit, because recall that in 2011 there was postponement. The last 3 cycles have led to postponement. 2011, you said it was because of logistics issues after the commencement, on the day of election, after the commencement of the election. In 2015, it was 2 weeks to the time, or a couple of weeks at a time, because of the security challenge in one part of the country, maybe 2-3 states, Adamawa, Borno, and Yobe. In 2019, it was a different ball game. It was a couple of hours to the election. So we've seen during the election, shortly before the election, and hours to the election. Now, I don't think any of those 3 cycles, the kind of challenges Inec faced, was as daunting as the challenges faced with the cash policy, with the lack of fuel, with this insecurity in the country. This time, it was not just one zone. It cut across all the zones, and throwing banditry, herdsmen clashes, kidnap for ransom, and things like that, attack of Inec facilities. So the fact that this election held was fantastic.
But is it a good thing now, that postponement, considering how the whole scenario is playing out? Because people thought that there was going to ramp up that quest for transparency on the part of INEC. Because even the times that you had it postponed, all right, people said, okay, well, if it was for this reason, probably. But now, look at where we are.
I wasn't even going to equate the service delivery, apart from the logistics challenges, to the backdrop of the challenges faced by the Commission in conducting the election. Just maybe, some of it can be excused for the late arrival of materials. If, in view of late arrivals, we still went ahead and, let's say, results were declared on time, or the IREV was working properly, I think people were ready to forgive a bit of that. But you cannot blame... I don't think you can blame that. I read the next statement yesterday. I don't think you can blame that for the non-adherence, let me use that term, to the guidelines to upload the results onto the IREV portal.
The law gives INEC the role, the responsibility of putting out the guidelines for the elections. Besides the electoral acts that everybody has, INEC determines the guidelines in the process of executing the electoral act, right?
Yes.
So if the 3 of you can weigh in on this, INEC had the challenges. But INEC gave assurances to the Nigerians that, look, this is what's going to be, and it's sacrosanct. There's no going back on uploading these results where everyone can see it. And even close to the election day proper, there was that statement from the NCC that no, there's nothing like shutting down of the networks. Everything is okay. So, did INEC not assess, Mr. Uzi, you can start off on this, did INEC not assess the tools it has at hand to execute the elections effectively?
I think a proper post-mortem will show us that. It's difficult to say exactly now because, again, all the facts are not before the public. We don't know all the facts, so it's difficult to assess. But not just the INEC guidelines. The law requires it, for example, to do certain things. So it's not a question of whether you want to or you don't want to or you're capable of doing it. Once the law is strict, almost utopian. The law says this, send these things, transmit. whether you like it or not, as a statutory body, you must comply with the law. And it's further reinforced by your regulations, which you yourself made. And you're allowed to make those regulations as long as they don't conflict with the Act. If they conflict with the Act will take precedence and the regulations will give way. But it's supposed to be feed, it's supposed to be lifeblood of that Act, giving effect to the Act. I don't know. The statement did not say everything that was necessary or that happened. So I'm trying not to be too judgmental until I hear all the facts. What were really the challenges? It said what was not the challenge.
Yeah. And no, let me just take off from where Mr. Uzi stopped. I think my challenge with INEC is that statement that was released at about 6 p.m. yesterday, as far as I am concerned, could have been released at 6 p.m. the day before, without a comma changed. The exact same statement, saying we're having challenges, they're glitches, it's not an internal sabotage, it's not been hacked, but we're working on it. Do you see what I mean? Because, as you said, it was supposed to be a platform that just, ensured transparency. And so that level of communication would have given Nigerians further assurance, right? So there was an assurance that it would work on the day. So many things are unpredictable. Technology in itself is not, explicit. But then you communicate with the people. So I think my major concern is, I read that press release, as someone who's a communication expert, and I'm thinking to myself, this same release could have been sent out at the same time the previous day without changing a word. Why they did not do that, I think it has now led to a huge vacuum, and it's giving room for people to make a lot of assertions.
Okay, Prof, before you weigh in on this, let's just hear from the international observers, the former president of South Africa, Thabo Mbeki, speaking to the press about the elections, and then we'll come back to you, Prof. Let's take that.
There were still long queues at some of the polling stations or polling units at the time of the closing of the polls. However, it was observed that those who were in the queues at 2:30 p.m. when the polls closed were allowed to vote. The close and count followed the due process for the most part with a high degree of transparency. In closing, due to their late openings, we found that the management of closing and count procedures varied in consistency. And one of the marked challenges we noted was the fact that as voting hours were extended, the close and count had to take place in the dark in many cases. It was noted that at some polling units, there was no proper lighting to facilitate counting at night. We know that lamps were not provided to polling staff to assist them in carrying out their crucial duties at this phase of the process. And on results management, we observed that the results were not uploaded on the INEC results viewing portal in real time as expected in many of these cases. We acknowledge the statement released by INEC in this regard. And to conclude, as the results process continues, let me end by reiterating the desire that all Nigerians, especially the candidates who contested elections, continue to uphold their pre-election commitment to peace. The group strongly encourages all Nigerians to exercise patience to allow INEC and its staff across the country to conclude the results process effectively and peacefully. And we wish to reiterate the assessment of the previous Commonwealth Observer Group in 2019 that electoral reform remains a continuous process.
Former President of South Africa, Thabo Mbeki, speaking for the International Observer Group and talking about the entire society can also monitor the inflow of the results and what we were saying earlier. But tying also these things that Thabo Mbeki has mentioned.
Which is very interesting, given the fact that he's talking about the upload of those results and also the circumstances in which it is done. And if you look at the speech, the release by Inec concerning that, it explained the glitch in the technology, but it did not address the consequences of that glitch. For instance, a lot of officials at the polling unit that were not able to upload the results before moving them to the collation center. What are they supposed to do? The idea is that those at the collation center would not deal with the results until they are uploaded. But now, if you go to the IREV, you'll find that although Ekiti State has been officially released, there are still many results from polling units that have not been uploaded. And that has to be addressed by INEC in terms of what steps should be taken, in the interim to address all of those things. Because traditionally, if you have a situation like that, you say these results are provisional, pending when, certain steps are taken. So we have not seen that.
Yeah, and that's extremely important, because I also heard the INEC chairman say that in a situation of discrepancy, it is the uploaded results that INEC is going to go with. Even though, yes, they're doing the manual collation and it is the results you bring to the center that they're going with. But in the case of a discrepancy, wherever it is that they don't agree, so there are questions now, because we've seen that quite a number of political parties are beginning to raise objections to some of the results that are being released. What results are they now going to go to say, we're comparing it with? Mr. Ozi, do you want to intervene on this?
Yes. It's a little bit slightly complex, so it shouldn't really be. But basically, the first thing is that the law requires the presiding officer to upload the results at the polling units.
Indeed.
And the basis of that, when you want to do collation, there are two steps that the collation officer has to look at. The first thing is say, look, the number of accredited voters, look at the BVAS machine itself. What is the number of accredited voters in this machine? Does it tally with the one put in the ECHA, with the result sheet? If it tallies, no problem. You go to the next level. Now look at the scores of the candidates, the votes scored by each candidate. Look at it from the ECHA and compare it with the transmitted results and ensure that they are the same before he goes on to do his collation. And you're quite right. When there is now, if there's a dispute, now he has a choice. The law says he should go to the transmitted results and to resolve it. But he can actually compare. Okay, the agent has come. There's a dispute. What I have here is 87. What you have in the form, he will do a comparison. It's an audit. It's just to make sure that all the results, in theory, should tally. If you don't tally, there's a problem.
So wait, is there anything wrong then?
Yes.
With what some of the agents were asking of INEC and by extension of those other officers who were to declare the result, asking just ensure that they reconcile or they tell us that what they have has been uploaded already?
I don't think there's anything wrong per se, but you see, is this the right venue to do so? Collation has been going on at different levels, right from the ward level to the local government level to the state level. Did you ask for this at that time? And it presupposes that you did. And usually, actually, the problem will come when there's a discrepancy. The real issues will come if there's a discrepancy. And then you bring your own result and say, look, this is the result I'm getting from this place, this ward, or this radiation area, or this local government. And my party, XYZ, scored 120,000. Why are you crediting me with only 12,000 or 10,000 or whatever else? They haven't done that. And I've watched the proceedings. I was there for a while. They're more concerned about procedural issues without saying that there are any discrepancies. They have not brought forth anything. Say, returning officers, sir, look, this is what I have. This is what they... But they are saying procedural issues. Procedurally, your regulations say you upload. Uploading is not just for the political parties. Actually, it's not really for the political parties. Political parties have their own results. It's actually for you and I, citizens, to compare.
I'm a little concerned, though. I mean, 48 hours after Seti, you've noted that as well. We've only seen the results from 8 states. We have 36 states to go. 36 states and the FCT. So far, we're still expecting about 28. plus the FCT. This is the FCT we're in. It has 6 area councils. I mean, if there's any place we should quickly be over and done with, it should have been the FCT. Why do you think it's taken? Do we have an explanation for why it's taking so long?
Obviously, we do not. And I think the point is that we should have an explanation for that. But, just piggybacking on something that Mr. Uzi said, I think that, the role of party agents is something that we need to start to, take more seriously. Because as a political party, your party agent actually plays a critical role. And I think that that's what we're beginning to see. Because as he said, the IREV was supposed to be for you and I don't know if you've tried to go there now, but actually you don't have to log in anymore. Remember that there was a login. You needed to create an account. Mm-hmm. But actually, if you go there now, there's no login. They've actually simplified it, which I think indicates to us that there was a complexity about the platform, right? Because before, if you went on the platform, it had drop-downs. But now if you go there, it has a list.
Okay, we're going to check it.
Yeah, without being a technical person, that just means there's an attempt to simplify, which probably means that the system then has better capacity to process it. So what I'm trying to say is that ultimately, a lot of these things should have been thought through. But I think the party agents like Mr. Uzi, because there are different levels of collation, and I think that would have been a great platform to raise all of these issues so that when you get to the national, you're coming with evidence. And I think that that's what the INEC chairman had in his favor when he intervened.
Well, we don't know when the chairman of the commission will come out to this National Coalition Center. So those are live images coming through from there. So they did tell us by 3 that will happen, but I think by now
it's like 20 minutes after 3.
There was a similar scenario yesterday as well, so it's usually perhaps several hours later. Ms. Uzi is the only person here who's got a bird's eye view, who can tell us what usually happens behind the scenes when they're trying to just what? Why does it take this? If they fixed 3 about 6 hours ago, or even from yesterday, what usually happens? How they don't bang on time for this kind of scenarios?
I wouldn't know what the reason is for this because although I have been to the center, I haven't gone to the inner sanctum to find out what it is going.
But from your experience, what used to keep you guys beyond the time, you said, because you were there. You guys never kept the time.
So, yeah. Lots of things happen. Sometimes you are waiting for other results to come. If you have only one result, it's to go out, spend 10 minutes, finish the results, and go back in. It's disruptive, and as TV people, that's not too good even for your broadcast as well. So maybe if you have 2, 3, you wait for me. Where are you? I'm on my way. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Oh, good. Have you boarded the flights? Have you landed? Have you gone through? Okay, we'll just wait for you so we can take 2, 3 a congressional states together. Things may have a reason, and things did arise, and the commission might be meeting to consider. What should be our approach? What do you think? What the lawyers come? What do the rules say? What does the law say? They're looking for solutions or some response to give to those queries that have arisen. There are many reasons for it. There might be additions when you bring processing the results brought. Okay, scope. Have you looked at this thing? Look at what they said yesterday about Kitty. Is it correct? Are there discrepancy in figures? Those are the kind of things that are going on in the back end. Any developments as well concerning different issues? Call FCT. Why is FCT not here? Things like that.
Okay, but Mr. Uzi, as TV people, if we give 3, we'll tell them, well, this is what's going on. If our challenges, we'll tell them. But here, we don't get to see any of those.
Sometimes they tell people on ground, in the center itself. Sometimes they do that.
Okay.
Say, please be patient with us. We're trying to sort out 1 or 2 things. We're trying to sort this or that out.
Well, we took former President Thabo Mbeki earlier, who's leading the Commonwealth Observation Group. But it's not only their own group that has been making observations on the election so far. We've also seen a statement from the International Republican Institute, that's the IRI, and also the European Union Observer Mission in Nigeria. Very strong statements they both have put out. The IRI, for instance, is saying that they've noticed or they're expressing concern over the violence that erupted in parts of the country during the just concluded elections. They note that while the signing of the peace accord offered the presidential aspirants the opportunity to caution their supporters, it failed to achieve the aim. That's a very strong observation to make. And maybe some people say it's early days, yes, because even the entirety of the results is not yet out. But so far, the indications are already pointing that, at least according to their own statement. And then they're also saying that the election fell short of its expectation owing to lack of adequate logistics and political violence, amongst others. That's the part of the IRI. Now, on the part of the European Union, they're noting concerns of vote buying, in spite of it all, in spite of naira scarcity, vote buying, violence, and delay in the deployment and commencement of elections. The Election Observer Chief Barry Andrews also shares concern of lack of transparency by the Independent National Electoral Commission over its delay to upload results on its portal promptly. They're expressing concern over the inability of some eligible voters to perform their civic duties owing to cash crunch and fuel shortages. So let me come to you, Prof. These are some of the statements that were, and I imagine that these are still preliminary statements. By the time the entire election results are concluded, and I'm sure that we might be able to get very concrete statements from even those groups. But these preliminary statements are not looking good. They're not sounding good on the part of when they're raising questions over transparency. We had expected more, hadn't we?
Yeah, definitely. But again, the conclusions are not surprising, and we even expect the complete statement later on to be more robust in terms to pointing at specific facts and events that have occurred during the course of the election. I mean, take for instance the whole question of transparency. The essence of uploading those results into the INEC portal is actually to make it as transparent as possible. Now, when you are unable to do that, a large chunk of transparency is already lost. And I think that's why that report is emphasizing that. Now, lack of transparency, then all kinds of conspiracy theories